People do not do business with businesses. People do business with people. When they're wanting to make a transaction, it's with a person. AI can never replace that personal touch. I have a little automation on my phone that when I drive to the gym, it will send a text message to my wife. I'm at the gym now, kiss emoji. One day, I'm driving through the parking lot. She's with me. We're going to dinner at a restaurant right there by the gym. My phone is just sitting there. It's not in my hand. She gets a text message. I'm at the gym now. And she looks at her phone. She looks at me. She said, "You're at the gym now, huh?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Oh, no, busted. Immediately, there was a disconnect that every text message that I had sent to her meant nothing because it was automated.
Welcome back to the Piece of Grit podcast. Today, I am so excited for today's conversation with, I would say, one of the pioneers in the internet marketing space, Paul Getter, on the show. He has spent over 2 billion people on marketing across the life cycle of his businesses. Paul, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Wow, when you said pioneer, I'm picturing myself like in a little wagon. Come on, let's do some of that internet stuff.
Well, I can say I have, for the amount of years that I've had Instagram, I've seen your ads come across my feed more than 1 million times. So I can say your ads are working because they know who to target. So is that true? $2 billion?
$2 billion. That's not me personally, but my team working hard. So that's across multiple platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google. And that's probably over about 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Still.
That's crazy.
You can back that up. Anybody wants to do the math on that, that's pretty crazy. But you said something off pod. You did $100 million.
$100 million in 1 month. And I think you were going to ask me the question about when we see a positive ROI, we just start to scale it. Well, yeah, that's definitely the case. But some of the clients that we manage, they weren't necessarily looking for an ROI. For example, we did marketing for several political campaigns where they might have a $300 million budget and they just want to spend as much as possible, as fast as possible. I remember talking with one of our clients that was a political-based client, and they were saying, spend more. And we're like, well, we can't really spend more. But you understand they have like a budget that if they don't spend it by the end of that cycle, it has to go back to the donors. So they're like, spend as much as you can, spend as much as you can. So we're like, spend it. So
are you allowed to say what political campaigns you were working with?
No, not really. But I think, if back in 2020 and so here's one thing that I always tell people: we were not ever locked into one political party, so we were working with both parties, and so
whoever's
we worked with
paying.
yeah, absolutely.
So let's back up a second. What abbreviated version? What got you here? Where did this start? Where did this pioneer of internet marketing kind of come to be?
Yeah, so a lot of times people ask me, how did you decide to become an entrepreneur? I'm like, I had bills to pay. So it wasn't like, oh, when I grow up, I want to be an internet. I couldn't even have done that. Like when I was a kid, there was no internet. So it was not a plan. When I grow up, I'm going to be a digital marketer. There was no internet. So I think initially what happened is I found myself kind of that nerdy guy. So when I was in middle school, I was doing programming and, fun stuff like that. And when I was in college, I went to a Bible college. And at that time, there was no internet. It was pre-internet, but companies had what we called bulletin board systems. So it was all dial-up modem and everything. And so I found myself fascinated with that. So when the internet became more popular, I was one of those individuals that was going door to door telling businesses, you need to get out of the phone book and get on the internet. And so I was initially kind of involved in building websites. And then I started dabbling around with, Google ads and various ad platforms. And I guess you would kind of say it evolved from there.
That's crazy. How do you think it is the world, especially now with the integration of AI, what have been the biggest mile markers of, you would say, like the industry shakeups? Like what were those points, especially as somebody who's seen literally the entire development over the 30, 40, 50 years?
Yeah. So I was actually a beta tester for Facebook ads. So when Facebook ads first released, you used a third-party ad platform to run ads on Facebook. So it wasn't even their own ad platform. So I was playing around with that ad platform on Facebook, and it was cheap, very, very cheap. Like we could get penny clicks. We could actually get 10 clicks for a penny. So it was good quality because there wasn't, of course, it was like the wild, wild west back then. You could go on Facebook and there was every type of ad that you can imagine. And then when Facebook released their own internal ad platform, I was a beta tester for them. So they would give me ad credit, just like test things out. And it was very basic. It was just like, maybe 10 or 15 targeting variables. There was no such thing as a pixel retargeting, nothing like that. So I went from there to, you have a more advanced ad platform where you've got various targeting. You got Pixel. I remember when the Pixel was released, we're like, whoa, this is amazing. A Pixel. We can retarget. We can make lookalike audiences, custom audiences and stuff.
For the layman, what does Pixel mean when in regards to
ads? So basically a Pixel is a code that you add into the website, and you can track the visitors and you can retarget them, and you can learn their, I guess you would say, like their marketing patterns. And so it really gives you some strong capabilities when it comes to marketing. So, but before that, it was just, I'm going to target men who live in, Ohio. And it was probably even less targeting than that. It was very basic. So you went from that to more advanced pixels. And then you had the Apple, where Apple kind of like shook things up, where, they removed the tracking capability. So you see that. And now I think it's become easier. It's become easier because a lot of times running ads, you don't have to have targeting. The Pixel, the Facebook does the work for you. It just, you say, this is my ad, and then it just kind of learns, starts targeting people, and it learns from there. So I think it's become easier with AI, with the advanced. There used to be a time when you could say, hey, I've got all of this experience running ads, and it gave you an advantage. But now, with the way that the systems are built, you have to have something different that sets you apart.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the life cycle of our business, we started in this like huge mastermind of agencies, and everybody was a paid ad agency for this niche, or the paid ad agency for this niche. And I remember having the conversation with the head of the mastermind, and he goes, listen, what you guys are doing right now is not going to get you to, stardom overnight. Like that's what these paid ad companies were doing. They could scale to 100K in 30 days in a lot of cases. But what he said is, give it 5 years. Most of those guys will be out of business. And if you guys stay on your path, you guys will be far beyond that because of exactly what you're talking about. It got easier. Now, if you're a business owner, you can pretty much launch your own ads in most cases. What do you think the biggest differentiator for somebody who is listening right now and they're like, well, I run a paid ad agency. How do you stand out?
Yeah. So I think the one word that would differentiate people is disruptive. Disruptive. And what I mean by that is everybody kind of follows certain patterns. And what you have to be able to do is stop the scroll. Stop the scroll. Now, when you say, well, I'm just going to be disruptive, that's an ever-changing variability, ever-changing variable. So what I mean by that is I have done ad campaigns that it was the first in this style, first person to use this style of marketing, and it went crazy. But then what happens in marketing is all the other marketers, they see that and they're like, oh man, that's awesome. I'm going to do that too. And then you have another person do it, another person. And now what was disruptive 6 months ago, everybody's doing it. So you have to change things. So being disruptive.
And given like the rapid evolution of how fast that happens, like how do you stay in front of the trends?
Yeah, so I think it's being creative. A lot of times when it comes to marketers, they're very good at the analytics, really good at, kind of like that analytical side of marketing, but you also need that creativity, that creative, like you guys are very creative, that creative style, that vision to be able to see, hey, I think this will catch people's attention. So an artistic side to you. It's more than just being able to do good targeting, good copy, but it's being able to have that creative side.
A lot of our audience is like young entrepreneurs, like looking to grow like this. And you've built, I would say, a very strong personal brand with like the internet marketing nerd. How important is it in today's landscape for these businesses and entrepreneurs, do you think, to create a personal brand alongside their business?
Yeah. So, well, what you have to understand is people do not do business with businesses. People do business with people. So when they're interacting, when they're wanting to make a transaction, it's with a person. And all the more reason that AI is becoming more popular. That's why you need a personal brand, because AI can never replace that personal touch. People want to be connected with people, that handshake. I'll give you a great story. So to show you that people will always want to connect with people, I have a little automation on my phone that when I drive to the gym, it will send an automatic text message to my wife, and it will say, "I'm at the gym now, kiss emoji." And it's automatic. Like when I pull up at the gym, it just boom, sends it to her, which is great. It's like,
Jamie needs that.
It's simple to set up on your iPhone and everything like that. Well, until one day I'm driving through the parking lot. She's with me. We're going to dinner at a restaurant right there by the gym. And as we drive by the gym, she gets a text message. My phone is just sitting there. It's not in my hand. She gets a text message. I'm at the gym now. And she looks at her phone. She looks at me. She says, "You're at the gym now, huh?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then I look over. I'm like, "Oh, no, busted." And so it was like, there was a disconnect that every text message that I had sent to her meant nothing because it was automated. So people, I think that you can make videos with AI. You can do all of these really cool things, but people still want to know that there's a person, there's a personality, there's feeling, there's a heartbeat behind what you're doing.
That's so funny because I think we get that so often where it's like, you guys are getting into this space. Like, aren't you nervous that in 3 years it's going to be gone?
Yeah.
Like, AI is going to do everything. It's like, hope not, but
Yeah.
So you've worked with like Grant Cardone and Ty Lopez. Like, how did that come about, and what have you learned from working with them and growing their platforms?
Yeah. So I think one of the advantages that I have is that I've been around a while.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I'll see these experts, that are like, "I'm an expert in this industry." I'm like, "But I've been doing this longer than you've been alive." You know what I mean? So it's like a 21-year-old kid that's done it for 6 months. You're not an expert yet. You're not an expert yet. Not to discount the fact that I learned from 21 years. I'll learn from anybody. But so I was working for a client in Los Angeles. And at this time, Facebook ads was very new. And this client, I believe, was a financial consultant, something like that. We were getting leads for his company. And he sat down in the barber chair. And the barber was asking him, "Hey, how's business going?" He's like, "Man, I got this kid over in Florida that's been doing this Facebook stuff. And we've been getting leads really cheap, super excited. We've been growing our following." He just, was talking like that. Well, the next person in the barber chair was Ty Lopez. And Ty said, "Tell me more about this kid," and everything like that. Got my number. Sometime later, Ty's brother, Ben, calls me up and says, "Hey, I heard you do stuff on Facebook. Tell me what you do." And again, this is a time, I think Ty probably had a couple 100,000 followers on Facebook. So he was, all the people that I've worked with, I've been fortunate. They've already experienced a great level of success. He was a very successful entrepreneur. He was doing big things, but he was kind of at the beginning phase of Facebook and online marketing. And so I'm talking with him, and I could look at a person's ads. There used to be this feature on Facebook that when you wanted to start an ad, say to grow your page or something like that, you would click a button and Facebook would auto-populate all this information and, just auto-create an ad for you. And not many people knew about the advanced Facebook Ads Manager. It was kind of like hidden back in the day. And so I remember looking at his ad, and I told his brother, I said, if you don't mind me asking, what are you paying per click on this? And he was like, I think it's about $1 or so. And I said, well, I think I can get it down to about 10 cents a click. And he said, oh, no, you can't do that. We got one of the best, everything like that. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure I can. So he hung up the phone and called me back 15 minutes later. He said, hey, can we fly you out to Beverly Hills tomorrow? I was like, yeah, sure. Didn't really know who Ty was or anything like that. And they flew me out there. I remember sitting there in the office and I had this, it was like the first version of iPad. And so I'm going through saying, this is what we should do. This is how you should do it. And I said, I can get it down to at least 10 cents a click. I actually knew that I could get it to 1 cent a click or less, but I wanted to, under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
And I remember I said this, I said, whoever's running your ads has absolutely no idea what they're doing. I didn't realize that guy was sitting right here in that room. And so Ty said, so when can you get started on this? I was like, well, give me access to everything and I'll go back to the hotel, get it started up tonight. And so that's exactly what we did. We set it up that night and I sent him a screenshot a couple hours later and it was like 7 cents a click. He's like, you're hired. I remember about an hour later, I got a WhatsApp message from the guy that was sitting here and he said, hey, do you offer coaching or mentoring? I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to coach myself out of a job. So that was one of the very first, I guess you would say, notable clients that I worked with. And working there in Los Angeles, it kind of opened doors to work with celebrities, opened doors to work with pro athletes and other individuals. And with it being such a small world, people say, hey, this guy works with Ty Lopez. And then, I get calls from Grant Cardone, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, Kevin Hart. And so it just kind of evolved pretty quickly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it started with Ty Lopez and it just snowballed from there.
Yeah. I think probably before that, there was a notable celebrity pastor that I worked with, and he had a lot of celebrities that went to his church. And so he kind of sent referrals from clients in Hollywood and actors and authors. But most people, know Ty Lopez. So
being in the game for as long as you have, what are like the most common mistakes that you see from businesses when they start to get into digital marketing? Like what are the most common mistakes that you see across the board?
So I would say this, and I look back at when I was first getting started in marketing. A lot of times marketers give up too quickly. And what I mean by that is they'll get an ad going and it'll start running a week, 2 weeks, and they're not getting the results that they would expect. And so they're like, okay, it's not going to work. And so they stop. But if they would keep on going another week, that ad would have time to optimize and the results would be completely different than what it was the first week. So that's number one. Just, I think that there's a certain dollar amount threshold that you have to be willing to spend to determine if this marketing is going to work. So that's number one.
What would that dollar amount be?
So what I like to see is 3 times the amount of what the price of your product is. So if your product is $1,000, be willing to spend at least $3,000 to $4,000 to see if you can get one sale. And if you're not willing to do that, and again, people want to spend, their product is $1,000, they want to spend $100 and get a sale. It's probably not going to happen like that. You got to be willing to lose before you can gain. So that's number one. And then secondly, realizing you can be the best at running ads, but marketing is a whole lot more than ads. It's about funnels. It's about emails. It's about copy. You can have a perfect ad. I remember this client came to us. He had been working with an agency for about a year. and his name is Brian. And he said, Paul, I'm not making very much. He was spending $50,000 a month, and he was making, I don't know, $55,000. And I said, Brian, how much are you paying this agency? And he was like, I don't know, it's like $5,000 a month. I said, so you're not making anything, you're losing money. And so he was stuck in a year contract, and he was telling me, he's like, they just don't know how to run ads. You know, as soon as my contract's up with them, I want to work with you guys. And so that day came, and we took him on as a client, and I started looking at his ads, and I realized his ads were not the problem. What he was doing is he was running ads to a funnel that he had generated several millions of dollars on this funnel, but the traffic that was used to generate the revenue on this funnel was affiliate traffic. So affiliate traffic acts completely different than cold paid traffic. So I said, Brian, the problem is not the ads. The problem is the funnel. So we recreated his funnel and just kind of added some things onto it. And the next month after we launched ads, I think it generated over $500,000.
Holy
so it's just knowing that, hey, this funnel is not a match with these ads. They can be great ads, but these ads don't match with these funnels.
So when you look at the space now, because now everybody's a coach.
Yeah.
Like everybody's an expert marketer.
My mom's a coach now.
Yeah. It's almost funny because there's guys in our space, like the content world.
Yeah.
They'll hit 50K a month.
Yeah.
You'll never hear about that agency again.
Yeah.
Now they're selling every
yeah.
Timbuktu. Hey, here's how you get to 50K a month with your ad agency.
Yeah.
What would you say differentiates between a good coach, mentor, mastermind host versus,
baller busters?
Yeah.
So I always talk about there's red flags to look at when it comes to coaches. Number one, they appeared out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's like, what? I never heard of this guy. Well, that should be a red flag. You never heard of this guy, and now he's selling a $10,000 course. What type of credibility does he have? So number one, they appeared out of nowhere. Number two, they have no testimonials. They have no real legitimate testimonials that you can fact check, you can see, everything like that. And then number three, they're led by money. They're led by money. It's revenue. That's what's motivating you. And I think, there's a certain amount of immaturity that when you're first getting started, and that's kind of a good indicator that they're just getting started, is that they're just being motivated to make more money. Because as you grow in business, as you mature, you realize, okay, I've figured this out, how to make money. It's more about relationships. It's more about building, connections. And you can really catch that in a person if they're just want to make money versus want to build a relationship.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you'll see a lot of these people that they'll sell you, and then you'll get to their back end of their product and you see the lack of care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You see the basic Facebook group or whatever, like whatever it looks like to just be like, I don't know that I got the value here.
Yeah.
But what I always say to those people is like, whoever just bought from you is going to talk about what they just bought.
Yeah.
Especially if it was a big number for them. They'll talk about it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And it's what are they saying after they bought from you is really the differentiator. I'd be interested for somebody like you who've seen all the different phases, when short form content came onto the scene, how did that disrupt the world of both digital marketing, content? Like, how did that disrupt it? And now I'd be interested, does it still hold the same weight?
Yeah. So what's interesting, I think back when Instagram first launched. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you can probably see I've been around a while. My Instagram handle's Paul, just Paul. And it's not like Paul_1478221, it's just Paul. But Instagram used to be photo only platform, no videos. And then it was, okay, we're going to try to be like YouTube. And it was like longer videos and stuff, and just like the horizontal style videos. And then TikTok comes out, and then the Instagram tries to, be comparable to TikTok and does the reels. So I think maybe there's a misnomer when it comes to short form content, that people think because short form content is popular that people's attention span is somehow shortened. That's not really the case, because people want valuable content. They don't necessarily want short content. They want valuable content. For example, one of the top ranking podcasts in the world is a 3-hour, how long are we going?
Yeah.
3-hour long episodes, and people listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, so people don't have a short attention span. They just want value. They want something that they can connect with, that they resonate with. So, but I think there's a challenge, and there is a push that it's quality. Quality is important, that you really want something that represents the day of just taking your phone and doing a little quick video and stuff. That's not going to cut it. You want to have something that is professionally done, something that'll really kind of position you in a way that would differentiate you from the other people online.
Yeah, I think it's what I've seen is, especially with short form content agencies, they've made a huge run, obviously, since 2020. It's been the talk of the town in the agency world. But what I've seen recently is it's starting to get commoditized to where it's like everybody can put out a good video. But what really matters is that substance. It's that long form. Most of the time, like that, what has stood the test of time? Quality long form content.
Absolutely.
And clips have just been a great billboard for that long form content. I'd be interested to get your take on where things are going, especially when you start to talk about AR, VR. Do you have any like ideas of like where things could potentially go with all that changing market?
Yeah. So I have this kind of like perception in my mind that with AI, AR, or VR, all of this stuff, that there probably come this day where you could be doing a podcast with a hologram, and you wouldn't like, I mean, is this really me? Do we know? So again, there's this push that people can do content quicker, easier, that you can use AI to help put scripts together and everything like that. So there's a certain amount of advantage, but there's a certain amount of danger in that too. Because when you lose the heart, when you lose that essence, like it's there's something innate about us that we want real human connection, that you could really be deceived for a while that, hey, this looks real, this sounds real. But as soon as an individual finds out, oh man, this is all AI, like there are Instagram pages of influencers that all of their content is AI generated, and they make a significant amount of money. And I'm like, how do people really buy into this? Maybe just looks. Maybe it's like this OnlyFans world or something like that. I don't know.
It's true.
But it's like if you knew that your coach or your mentor was only AI generated, I think that you would be hesitant about really making a transaction with them.
Yeah.
I'm still mind blown by the amount of like ad dollars weekly that you're putting in and like managing for your clients. So it's like I'd imagine that's an unbelievable responsibility to deal with all these people's money without giving away your secret sauce. Like, how do you employ different strategies to make sure you always have something that's working and staying ahead of failing trends and new trends?
Yeah. So I can say this. There used to be a day, and this is from Facebook. I remember being on the phone with one of the lead Facebook reps, and they're going through my account, and they start laughing. They say, hold on just a minute. And he pulls another guy over there to the computer, and he's like, no way. And he says, Paul, we have never seen anybody spend so much on Facebook ads. and so this was just, at that time, there was probably 3 or 4 people on my team, because it was, there was a day that you could just set an ad and the ad world was not as saturated, and you could just put it out there and it would work. That it was, people were very impulsive in their actions. Now it is saturated, and people, they have been scammed. They've, had bad experiences. So now the life cycle of ads, it's a little bit longer before you start to see those, purchases or appointments or leads generated. So you have to warm them up. So I teach a simple formula. I call it ICE, the ICE method. So number one, there has to be an introduction. And what I mean by that, say, for example, you're a personal brand. People want to know your story, your origin story, where you came from, what you're about, and then, kind of that transformation. How did you get to where you are? And so that's telling your story, that introduction. Again, there used to be a day where you just put an ad out there. This is what I got. This is what I do. And people like, click, buy. But now there's this hesitancy, this distrust. So people want to know your story. They want to know more about you. And then after that, there has to be C. There has to be content that builds that trust, where you position yourself as the expert, the authority. And some people, they're hesitant about sharing the secrets. This is what I've learned. Share all the secrets. Share all the secrets. Like, just put all the juicy stuff out there. And people, it gains their trust, because they're like, look, if I can learn this from his YouTube video, if I can learn this from her Instagram, posts, wow, I want to work with them. So put out valuable content that can really serve and help people. And then after you have IC, then you have E, engage. And that's when you're asking for the sale. That's when there's a transaction. If you do I and C right, people start asking you, what do you sell? I want to buy something from you. Like, sell me. So, but I kind of like illustrate it this way. There used to be a day when marketing was like one night stands. It was like, here it is, buy, transact. Now you have to date. You have to, there has to be a relationship before there's an engagement.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It's interesting though, talking to somebody like you, you have built a lot of your business through referral. What does it take to be a good referral for others?
Well, I think results. Results. I mean, plain and simple. If you get someone the results that you promised, they will be your biggest fans. They'll be your biggest evangelists. They want to tell everybody. And so sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, oh, I work with this guy and I did work with this and this is what happened. They have this bad story. And as sad as it sounds, those are my favorite clients, because I know if I can truly help them, that's number one. You have to recognize everybody's not your client. So you have to learn to say no. Like, we're not a good fit, because you can do yourself a disservice by saying yes to everybody. So you have to kind of like do your research and ask yourself. You can get caught up like, okay, I got a new client. But if you can't really serve them and help them, it's best to say no, because that can really impact your reputation.
So the base of this podcast is we like to interview like highly successful entrepreneurs.
I don't know why you invited me.
So
Really?
Across different industries, whatever industry it may be, to try to find like commonalities across the board, like what makes high performers high performers.
Yeah.
And not only are yourself a high performer, you've worked with a ton over the years. Have you noticed any like commonalities across the board in these ultra successful people?
Yeah. So I would say one of the first traits is a willing to take risk, because the average person getting started, it's like, they'll take little risk, but a lot of times big success demands big risk. Being willing to take that step when nobody else. So that's number one, being willing to take risk. And what goes hand in hand with that is being able to see trends, and recognize, okay, this is something I need to jump on quickly. So if you look at these leaders in the industry, chances are they were early adopters in one specific area or another. Like they were the first person in this. They were the first person doing this. They were early adopters in these platforms. And so they saw those trends and they jumped on them quickly. So being willing to take risk, being an early adopter, and then having a discipline, just a discipline. there's a difference between motivation and discipline. Discipline says I do it whether I'm motivated or not. Just like, man, I got to do it. I know this is the right thing to do. And then finally, I would say integrity. Most importantly, integrity. You know, it's frustrating sometimes because I see some of these individuals that are leaders in the industry. And if you do anything at any high level, you're going to have haters. I think that's almost a compliment that you're doing something right, is that you'll have haters. People will, say, throw trash your way and everything like that. And so sometimes I've seen some of these individuals that I've worked with that people criticize them, hate them and everything like that. I'm like, look, you know them based upon 5 videos that you've seen on Instagram or TikTok, and you've developed this, this idea of who they are. And so that's kind of frustrating because you really don't know the individuals. You don't know who they are off camera. You don't know who they are behind that. And so you don't know the sacrifices they've made, the discipline and the integrity that they do have.
So when you look at the Mount Rushmore of internet marketers, obviously excluding yourself in this exercise, but
Of course.
who do you think is on that Mount Rushmore?
I would say individuals. Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels. He revolutionized the way that individuals made funnels. Back in the day, everything was custom. It was difficult. It would take you, a couple weeks to create a funnel. So Russell Brunson, Neil Patel, just a giant when it comes to the real legitimate marketing. And then Dan Kennedy, the OG of copywriting. So there's certain individuals that teach marketing that the concepts will not be relevant 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But individuals like Dan Kennedy, he teaches psychology and principles of marketing that worked 50 years ago and will work 50 years in the future. So I think those 3 guys, if I have to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Rudy Moore, he is a young up-and-coming marketer, and I think that he's going to make a big splash. He's already made a big splash.
Rudy Redcoat?
Rudy Moore.
Is he the guy?
The guy in red.
Yeah. What do you think, speaking of Rudy, what do you think, like, he has a brand that is so easily identifiable?
Yeah.
You, the bow tie, the glasses.
I'm sans bow tie today. But
if you were talking to somebody that wanted to create that purple cow experience, you know what I mean? That's who that is.
Yeah.
What would you identify first?
Yeah. So online, what you have to do is you have to take your characteristics, your persona, and amplify it. What I mean is you have to talk to the people on the back row. Imagine yourself in an audience and there's 1,000 people there. You have to talk to the person in the back row. And as if you don't have a microphone and you're talking to that person on the back row, because the people in the front, they're going to get it loud and clear. But you have to be something that just like you're unique, you're different. So find those characteristics, those personality traits, and you have to amplify. So that's what I say about these individuals that people know online. You know them from like this brash, attitude or something like that. In real life, are they like that? A little bit. But what they're doing is they are amplifying that online, and the clips that you see that do the best is because people connect with that. And then additionally is recognize that everybody is not your audience. Be you, be unique. A lot of times these very successful individuals are polarizing. It's like people will say to me, "Oh, you work for so-and-so." And I don't know whether I should say yeah or no, because I don't know how they feel about that. Because these individuals often have polarizing personalities. So if you try to please everybody, you'll end up pleasing nobody. So find your audience, find your voice, and double down on that.
That's a really, really good.
You mentioned earlier one of the commonalities or characteristics that you notice in super successful people is recognizing trends, and, seeing where the world is going. Are there any industries or anything coming in the next like 5 years or so that you have your eye on you think's gonna explode?
Yeah, so I think it goes without saying that AI is moving at such a rapid pace that if you are not involved in it, that you are going to get left behind. I've heard people say it this way: AI may not replace your job, but a person that knows AI probably will.
Yeah.
So being able to use that and amplify it and make what you're doing easier and quicker is important. And then I think that you kind of have to look at things from a perspective that anything is possible. Anything is possible. That, marketing and ads, I mean, there could literally be a day that you're sitting in your car and ads are visible in front of you and they are targeted to everything that you think. And it's just that there's going to be just an unimaginable amount of ways that you can market to people. So that's number one is AI and the possibilities of that. And then you have to look at the complete other extreme, because people are more and more concerned about privacy. Like they don't like this, that all of these things are known about me. So if you don't have access to all of that data about people, how can you still be relevant in a marketer that connects with people? And so that's a lot of times when changes happen, the people that are good rise to the top and the people that aren't, they disappear.
So then going off that, with all the knowledge that you have, if you had to start over tomorrow with no money, where are you going with this?
Man, if I had to start tomorrow, well, what I would do is I would find individuals that are doing what they do the best and follow them, learn from them. Like sometimes people ask me, like, if you could go back in time and you could change things, what were some things that you would change? I'd get a mentor. There was this time where I remember one of the first courses released online. Like there was courses, but it was call up a 1-800 number and get the CDs or the cassette tapes. But one of the first courses that came online, and I was like, whoa, this is where everything's going to go. And a lot of times what people would do is they would take their CDs and they would just digitize it. For example, Bob Proctor, one of his very first webinars that he did, we created it for him. It was all audio based. It was MP3s, as there was no videos or anything like that, but it was a digital course. So number one, I'd get a mentor. Number two is I would go to events. I would get connected. It's relationships over revenue. When you realize that relationships is the most valuable commodity, that's the answer right there. Is look, if I have nothing, if I have no money, nothing like that, I still have relationships. So, I can call you up, Michael, bro, let me borrow $100,000. And you're like, sure, man, I got you. And so, so I've got those relationships. So understanding that relationships is the most valuable commodity. So invest in relationships.
So then how do you build a great network? Right? If relationships are so important, like how can someone go about getting in the room with like high level people and meeting the people they need to? How do you build a great network? Man,
you'd be surprised. Like, for example, the event that you had here last week, there was amazing individuals. I'm talking to people. It's funny. I talked to a guy that I had worked with. I don't know, probably over 10 or 15 years ago. My assistant was here with me and he was talking to me. He's like, that name, Paul Getter, that sounds so familiar. And he pulled up on his phone and he found an email where we had talked 10 or 15 years ago. He's like, I worked with Paul 10 years ago. And so it's just amazing. And fast forward now, this guy is doing a multi-million-dollar company. Treat everybody the same. Like there's not one person like, okay, this guy's got, he's worth this amount, so he's more important. He's got this many followers, he's more important, because you don't know. You really don't know. So treat everybody like they are that next $1 million deal. And I promise you, if you do that, you'll never go wrong. So whether it's the person at the store, at an event, just get out there.
Yeah. So I'd be interested to get your take on this. So we talk about it all the time. So in 2024, we saw like a rise in podcasting, right? It went from just Joe Rogan doing it. Everybody's trying to start a podcast. It even, I would say, arguably swayed the political election. With what podcasts were listened to, who went on what. Where do you see podcasting going in 2025 and beyond?
Well, I think podcasts are going to be the preferred media platform. And and so what I mean by this is the regular media, there has become such a distrust because they're motivated by, advertising dollars, or they're motivated by this agenda or that agenda. When it comes to podcasts, for example, Joe Rogan, what makes his podcast so successful is not like the high production or anything like that. But when you listen to it, it's just a couple guys sitting down having a conversation and you're just peeping into it and it just draws you in. And there's a trust. There's like, hey, there's not an agenda. They're just talking about what they really feel like. And so there's that trust that you have in the traditional media. There's a distrust because you're like, hey, they said this, but this is reality. And this is reality. And they're talking about this. And so there's become a disconnect. When I was a kid, I remember everybody used to want to be a radio DJ or something like that. That was a celebrity in the community. I grew up here in Naples, and I think it was Laser 93.5, and the DJ, he had billboards in the city and stuff like that. It was just a local DJ. And I don't know, maybe 10, 20,000 people heard him a day. Now you can be a celebrity doing your own podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've had people message me or people I meet and they get talking to me and I'm like, how did you know that about me? That's weird. You're a stalker or something. Like, no, I heard that on a podcast or something. Like, whoa, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So podcast has empowered the average individual.
Yeah. I've also seen a trend or a data point that I thought was interesting. People are 47% more likely to trust a podcaster than they are than a traditional influencer.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, it's because the average person, the average coach, the average consultant, the average expert isn't doing a podcast. It takes time. It takes work. It takes discipline. It takes all of those things to do a podcast. So it's kind of like I always encourage people to write a book, experts to write a book. Why? Because the average coach, the average consultant, the average expert hasn't written a book yet. So the same can be said about a podcast. It elevates your brand. It positions you as an expert, and it gives you a podcast. Your voice can continue to speak when your voice can't speak any longer. It's information that will always be out there. I
also say you can get to the end of a person pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You can get to the end of somebody pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You put them on an hour podcast, you'll get to the end of them pretty quickly. So I think podcasting for the wrong person is the easiest way to get found out, because you just ask the right question. And then they just start, finding themselves lost in the sauce a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd be interested taking the conversation a little bit locally. How have you seen Naples develop? Because it's so cool.
Yeah.
Somebody like you, who I've seen everywhere, finding out that you live here is so cool. But I'm also starting to see that trend.
Yeah.
A lot of major successful people, both on internet side and just in real life, they started in Naples.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah. So people ask me, like, how'd you end up in Naples? My parents brought me. I moved down to Naples in 1978 originally from Dayton, Ohio. Back then, Naples was like a little fishing town.
Mm-hmm.
It was just not much to speak of. I remember my parents, when we first moved here, they were looking at a house within walking distance from the beach. They decided not to buy it because it was too expensive. It was $42,000. So now I think the mortgage would be $42,000 a month on that house. So I've seen it change. There used to be a day when you could drive around Naples and you were always honking your horn, waving at people because everybody knew everybody. Now Naples, there's more CEOs, millionaires, and billionaires per capita than anywhere in the United States.
Yep.
The most expensive house on the market, in the U.S. market, is right here in Naples, Florida.
We run past it every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it is, it's definitely changed a lot. I always tell people Naples is like Miami without all the craziness. It's quiet, and it's the place where people retire before they go to heaven.
Yeah.
So I think for a long time, because I travel a lot and because I have a lot of visibility online, I've kind of like kept it a secret that Naples was home for me, because I kind of want my privacy and stuff. And I've walked out of my house in the morning and someone was waiting there. I follow you on Instagram. Like, bro, man, get out of here. So I've learned to be discreet. I used to always tag that I lived in Miami, and so people would run into me here in Naples, like, I didn't know you. What are you doing over here in Naples? I'm like, I live here. But I think that Naples is an up and coming city where there are a lot of, number one, there are a lot of very highly successful CEOs and business owners that they've got second homes here, and so I think that there is a community of individuals that really want to, be on that cutting edge, be in a place where business and, community is being built.
Yeah. And like we talked about last week, Naples is getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
And like, that's our goal, is to bring the new age of media to Naples, to this younger demographic.
Yeah. I loved it when you told me, you were like, because I've worked with other studios, whether it's Orlando and, Miami, you're like, Naples is going to be the place. Because I believe that. I believe that, so I did my very first event open to the public here in Naples about 3 or 4 months ago. In my mind, Naples is like, okay, it's not near a major airport. You got to go up to Fort Myers and stuff. But I did my first event. I've done private, masterminds, but I did an event open to the public up at Hilton in Naples. And I was a little bit hesitant because I didn't know if this would be a place where people would come. We sold out, and 50% of the people that attended were locally here in Naples, and then 30% were South Florida, from Central to South Florida, and then another 25% flew in from out of Florida. And when people came here, they're like, oh man, I love this. Naples is beautiful. So now I'm thinking like, okay, this is a good place to do events.
I seriously, like, the opportunity. The only way this doesn't happen is if the people at the top don't want it to happen, which I think is part of when you talk to like city planners. You're like, nah, we don't want this. You know what I mean? We don't want this type of exposure. But I seriously think Naples has the real opportunity, at least where our mission at Grit is, to make it the media epicenter of the world. Because I think when you have access, like running this podcast, being here locally, you'd think like, well, you guys are starting a podcast in Naples, Florida. But when you hear that stat of this has the most millionaires, billionaires per capita in the entire United States, you start to double check and you go, oh, okay, there's an opportunity here.
Yeah, we're here to stay. We're going to continue to build until we make Naples what it should be.
I have to confess, I've had a podcast, and past tense, had a podcast, had a little fun. I called it Nerd Nation, and did a few episodes, and it was just, you know, at home, one of those, not really professional. But I started thinking about, like, if I started a podcast again, Naples is a really cool place because I can go down to Fifth Avenue. I can, you know, hang out with some of my friends there and interview CEOs of major companies that, you know, it's like founders and owners of major companies live here in Naples.
Yeah. If you were to do that, I know this pretty cool new company.
Yeah. Give me the card before I leave, man.
No, but so outside of the podcasting, you've had ultra success up to this point. What's next for Paul Getter?
Yeah. So as of probably about 7 or 8 months ago, we have been doing a lot of events. We do about 2 events a month. I've got a new passion project. It's called Speakpreneur, where we help entrepreneurs transform their voice. That's the book right there. Yep.
Yeah.
We help entrepreneurs transform their voice for impact, influence, and income. I think that everybody's a speaker. Everybody's a speaker. You guys are speakers. You're speaking on a podcast. You're speakers. And our voice is something that can make a difference. So we do 2 events a month. We travel all over the world. We was just up in Canada. We've got events planned in London, Dubai. Next event is up in Orlando. After that, Houston. So we're doing these events all over the world, and it's fun, it's exciting, and we're impacting lives, and we're helping, you know, entrepreneurs step their game up when it comes to public speaking. You know, getting their voice out to more people.
I love that.
So we access to everyone that comes on as well. Obviously, our company is Grit Media. The podcast is Piece of Grit.
Yeah.
What does grit mean to you? Not the company.
Yeah, grit. Man, just sticking to it.
Yeah.
Sticking to it. Understanding that I think in this online space, it's missing a lot of grit. What I mean by that is because people, they'll start up and in 90 days, oh, it's not working. You know, 90 days, you got to have some grit. Stick to it. And so having that stick to itness that, hey, I'm just going to keep doing this. I don't know. I read some statistic, and you guys probably know it. And I'm one of those statistics, individuals that start a podcast, and, you know, it's like less than 10% have more than 10 episodes, something like that. I heard that 97% of statistics are made up. So, you know, so 10% of podcasts don't go past 10 episodes. That's my statistic. But it's something like that. But it's because of that grit. They're like, okay, you know, I did 10 episodes and I'm not number 1 in business. So they give up. So you have to be led by something more than metrics. And it's about getting your voice out. It's about making an impact. It's about making a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think grit, again, we're so lucky to have these conversations because it redefines success for us every single time, but it also redefines that word grit because everybody has a different answer, but it's all connected to the idea of when you start something, just don't quit.
Yeah.
Because most of the times, if you are just the person to outlast and you have some semblance of an IQ, you'll get there. You'll get there.
So this is something I learned recently. Some things you got to quit. You know what I mean? Some things you got to quit. But when you quit, you have to be proud of the reason why you quit. You know what I mean? So because there are some things that you have to look at in business and life and say, this is not working. You got to stop it and being able to detect it. So being able to say, hey, I'm proud of the reason why I'm quitting or where I quit in this. So,
Well, Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Coming on.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. I hope we could do it again.
Yes, absolutely. Next time I'll wear my bow tie because a lot of times people don't even recognize me without my bow tie.
Or for us, anybody watching, how can somebody that's watching this support you besides buy this book?
Yeah. Matter of fact, if you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is Paul. give me a follow there. Send me a message on Instagram that you heard me on this podcast, and I'll make sure you get a free copy of the book.
Awesome. And what I will say is having just Paul as your Instagram name is gangster.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
I gotta
Thanks a
get
lot.
mine to just be Mike.
Just Mike. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you guys again for watching. If you enjoyed this, please please subscribe. The #1 way podcasts grow through word of mouth. So if you send this to a friend that you think will find value, that would mean a lot to us. We will see you guys on the next episode.